What's up, everybody? Chad at Endless Potential. I want to bring you something that I think was really beneficial to reflect on in my progress for pretty much the last year, let's say, and the mistakes that I made that could save you time and also help you retain more muscle while you're trying to be in a deficit or trying to get really lean, right? So let's go ahead and dive into it. So at the beginning of me uploading, so we'll just say the very beginning of 2024, I was weighing 255, right? I just kind of set this up just to show y'all this is not how this usually is set up. So if you're hearing the banging, sorry about that. Before the channel, I went to 235 at the beginning of the channel, right? So in between there, I lost 20 pounds. And so at the channel's point, right, 235 was now my starting point for when I started uploading, right? But it was not the start of my deficit. I had already been 20 pounds down. And so we're going to go over some of the mistakes I made here. So at this point, I continued dieting, and y'all will see that in the community section. I was putting in weigh-ins every single week. I was losing pound and a half on the money every week, right? For weeks on end, for months on end, I got down to roughly, we'll just say, I think the lowest I seen was like between 205 and 210, we'll say. And we're just going to say that that's the area I was in just because of water and when I was weighing myself and stuff like that, right? So I had seen 205 at the time, but I think it was more so dehydration. I think I was probably closer to 210. So at this point, I had actually came from 255 to 210, let's say. That's 45 pounds of weight loss, right? Continuously, really. And so this was all also through doing no cardio. Okay. My calories started out, we'll say, roughly 3,500 at the 255 mark. And by the time I got to 235, I started technically at 3,300. Dang, board. Let's redo that so y'all can kind of see here. This ain't gonna be no high production. This is just gonna be information here, right? So that was my starting point during the time when I was uploading into the channel. Okay, this is where it starts to get tricky, right? So by the time I had got to 210, my calories were roughly, we'll say, 18 to 2,000. A little bit closer to probably the 18 mark. And I know that for a fact because I was weighing everything. I was weighing everything I could on a scale. This wasn't like I was just guesstimating. I was pretty on point with my tracking of macros and stuff, right? Not saying that I was the most efficient with it, and that's something we'll talk about as well. All right. So what happened was my metabolism tanked. So, okay. But the problem was I didn't start doing cardio when I should have when I was up here. So I didn't increase my activity level. I didn't keep my metabolism high enough. And so now I'm at the point where I'm struggling energy-wise to eat less. Like I still needed to probably come down, let's just say be generous and say at least 10 to 15 more pounds. I probably need to be around 190, honestly. So we'll say 20 pounds is where I needed to be at. And I probably could have gotten away with 195 as far as like being where I would like to be at that time. And now you're telling me that I'm already eating 1,800 calories and I need to lose more weight. So now I need to then increase my cardio, increase my output, right? My daily expenditure output, do more walking or do more cardio throughout the week or just move around more. Whatever it was, now I need to do more workload with less energy coming in, right? With less calories. I messed up right here. So my metabolism was pretty much shot. Like I was eating very little. You gotta remember, out of all this, you have to do, what you want to be, roughly a gram per pound of body weight. So for easy math, the protein, right, is 4 grams or 4 calories per gram, right? So if we need 200, protein equals 800 calories. So now I've got 1,000 calories to split with carbohydrates and fats. That's not a lot. That's really not a lot. I was really carb depleted and my metabolism was down. I hadn't done any cardio. I was pretty much at a really bad sticking point as far as I had kind of not evaluated from the beginning what was needed. So this is where it needs to be corrected, right? So I did a reset. So now we'll go ahead and just erase all this real quick. Actually, before I cut that out, I want to say that, remember, now I'm at like 210 and metabolism shot, okay? I've not been gaining muscle for probably about 6 months. We'll say 4 or 5 months. Let's just say 5 months. And I have no metabolism. My cardiovascular system's in the toilet and my calories are really depleted. All right, so what's different this time and how can you guys not have this same problem? All right, so we're gonna now say my starting point is 210, right? Now I'm gonna start gaining weight. So I started increasing calories. For 6 months, I wasn't really uploading. I was working a lot and stuff like that. And I should have been more consistent with the channel and I just didn't have the availability for it, right? Had a lot going on. So I went from 210 to 230, right? So I went from 210 to 230, back up. This time I did have some body fat too, but it was nowhere near as much as what I had when I went from 255 to 210. Okay, so now my metabolism's pretty high again, right? So my metabolism's up. It's up, right? So that means that roughly my baseline is going to be somewhere around 2,800 to, let's say, 3,000, right? It's going to give or take. I think I'm probably closer to like in the middle. But roughly, based off my guesstimations, when I was coming back down in weight right before I started uploading again, 2,900. As long as I was within 50 calories of that, I was doing pretty decent just on daily activity because it's going to vary based off the day, right? Okay. But now, right now we're reset. So now we're at 230 and we're going to go back into a deficit, right? We're going this way. We're going back down. We're going to go back down. But what are we going to do different this time, right? What have I been doing different this time? Okay, so now I started my deficit at 2,800, right? So 2,800 is when I started to lose weight. That's why I'm saying I'm probably at 3,000 actually for baseline. All right, I've been doing a deficit for 5 weeks. Okay, I'm now roughly at 2,500 calories and I've lost about 6-7 pounds. So 6 to 7 pounds down. Okay, so now my starting point for here is going to be 224. I weighed 222 one day and the next day I weighed 224 and a half. So I'm just going to shoot somewhere in the middle and say I'm 224 because one day I was a little dehydrated. The next day I made sure I was on point, but I think I drank too much water, so too late in the day. So 224 is the average there, right? Okay, so now before I bring my calories below 2,500, I'm not going to do that, right? So now I'm going to start inducing cardio, which I had been doing here. I'd only been doing probably, let's say, twice a week. I was running a little bit just because I wanted to get back into running just for the sake of it. I know it's not the healthiest for high impact. And then I had to pull it right back out. It was just too much on my body. But I was doing 2 days of cardio, roughly 15 to 30 minutes, let's say. Okay, so now we're going to increase cardio, and I'm not going to touch my calories. So calories are not changing, okay? 2,500 calories is still consistent with me losing weight. I'm still losing weight about a pound on average, but instead of it, when it starts to slow down, I'm not going to immediately drop calories, because that's going to drive my metabolism down and my body's going to start to want to do less activity. It's going to be harder to get into the gym to get those carbohydrates and actually utilize it, right? So I'm going to increase my cardio, which was, I think, the driving factor of why cardio is so important when it comes to being healthy and maintaining a lot of muscle mass, right? Because we're already going to we already lift a ton. We're all, if you're into the bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman stuff, you're a meathead. Like, you want to put on as much muscle as possible, right? The training itself shouldn't be an issue. If it is, you got to fix that first. This is going to go ahead and say that you're training really hard and really consistent. You're not skipping workouts. You're not skipping legs, right? So cardio comes into play here now. So now I have room to increase my metabolism, right? Because whenever I do that, I'm going to have more room for more calories inside of what I'm already working with, right? So I might be able to actually go up or stay consistent. I can stay at 25 or maybe even 2,600 calories, right? And just add in another day or two of cardio of low, like we'll call it zone 2, like pretty steady state, biking, elliptical, something like that. No high impact stuff. But really difficult to talk. I usually like to watch my heart rate on my watch, and I keep it around 115 to 120. If it goes above 125, I'll start to slow down until I can get it back in control. All right, so metabolism's not going to be shot. I'm still getting enough to support the muscle that I have on my frame, right? The glycogen, the macro, the way it's working out is I'm getting 200 protein on average. I'm getting roughly, we'll say, what was it? We'll say around 190 to 220 on carbs. And then the rest is fats. Whatever that equals up to. Because that's usually fluctuated off my carbs for the day. Roughly 30 grams, 20 grams off a little bit every day. But I'm around that 200 mark. Okay, so now what you can do is you can start to use macros in a more efficient way. So this is how I'm doing it, right? So this is how I'm going to get better. So I'm going to take majority of these carbs, and they're going to go into the very, very beginning of the day whenever I'm about to do my lifts, right? So if you're lifting in the afternoon, you're going to eat those fast digesting carbs during that time, as much as you can without it affecting the rest of your meals, right? You still want to have carbs throughout the day to have consistent energy levels, but a good chunk of those carbs should come in, the fast ones at least, the simple ones should come in right before you're about to lift. So what does that look like? So that's going to look like, we'll say 40 to 60 carbs surrounding my lift, before lifting. All right. So now it might be something like honey, because that's a pretty simple sugar. And me personally, I try to stay as natural as I can when it comes to food. If I can have a better option, I'll take it. I really like having honey. It's just something I can put on keto bread or something. It just makes it easy to do, right? It could be a carb powder, whatever it is that you're going to prefer. It just needs to be easily digestible, and you need to have a good amount of carbs coming in, right? So that's almost like what, a quarter of your, we'll say 1/8 to one. You could even up this if you really wanted to. I mean, you could go up to like 80, but I personally find that as long as I'm getting at least 40, 60 is pretty good. And the more you can, the better. You just got to figure out how you schedule your meals. But this is where I like to start at. This is what I would say is like for a deficit, not too bad right before you're lifting. So now my metabolism's up. My output's up, my calories aren't dropping, right? And the carbs are being utilized during the day instead of going straight to the fat tissue, right? Because whatever you're not using at the time gets saved and stored up, right? Or, it becomes waste pretty much. So when you're having fast and simple carbohydrates, you really want to time them really well, because the rest of your carbohydrates can be something like slow digesting, right? So now we're going to use the rest of the carbs, the other 140 carbs, throughout your other, let's say, 4 to 5 meals. 5 meals. And let's say it's going to be something like potatoes, right? Or potatoes. What else we got? You can use, I wouldn't really count this as a carb so much because it's not going to be enough, but you could even use vegetables, right? Potatoes, vegetables, anything that's got a lot of volume to it. So like rice cakes, I would use that as well. But I'm just talking about mainly like whole foods. I would not be eating rice too much on a deficit as part of my meals. And I did that on my last one. That was another mistake I had, right? Because the satiety index for potatoes and vegetables and oats is another one. We'll throw that up there. So oats, right, is that they all take a long time because they're complex carbohydrates. And what that does is it smooths out your energy levels, right? So let's say if you're in a deficit and you're going to have, right now I'm eating between 4 to 6 meals a day. So I'm averaging, let's just say 5 meals. And the first one's going to be like my simple sugars right around my workout, 60 carbs, using those really quickly within 30, 45 minutes of working out. I'm eating that. Okay. The other 140, I'm going to divide that up. So we'll just say like whatever that comes out to, right? Because I don't eat carbs in every single meal. There's 2 of them where I just really just have protein throughout the day, every 2-3 hours. So we'll really say 3 meals, you divide up 140, and whatever that comes out to math-wise, right? But the main thing is just kind of keep it as consistent as you can, because instead of you eating a ton of rice, your blood sugar spikes and you come back crashing and you feel like you're tired. Now when you eat those potatoes and stuff or those oats in the morning, you're gonna have this gradual increase and this gradual decrease. And then you're like, man, like I'm starting to feel kind of hungry. Like I can feel it in my stomach. As long as you're staying hydrated, it should be hunger, because your body doesn't know the difference between water or food, right? Hunger is hunger, and thirst is included in that. So most people equate thirsty to the way their mouth feels, but your stomach doesn't understand the difference between thirsty and hungry. So you're consistently having pretty good energy, right? So then right before when you start to come down, that's about the 2-hour mark, you're going to refeed with some other complex carbohydrates, right? Some potatoes, some sweet potato, and then boom, it's going to come back up and you're going to be like, okay. And now you're managing your energy level, and you're going to manage your energy production and not production. Well, yeah, I guess you could say your production, because you're going to be more consistent throughout the day, right? You're not going to be crashing especially towards the end of the day and stuff like that. So your overall output and input is just flatlined. It's pretty easy to manage, instead of like taking in, let's say you eat, I don't know, gummy bears or something. It's just going to shoot you through the roof for like an in-between snack or whatever. You're just going to shoot you through the roof and you're going to come crashing down. And then you're going to be like, man, I'm so tired. I'm eating enough calories and I really don't think I should be this low on energy. It's because of the blood sugar spikes, right? We don't want that. Now you want those during specific times, like if you had some carbs in the morning, you want that sugar spike, right? Because you're about to utilize that. You're pushing glycogen into the muscle, putting it in and storing it, pulling the water in with it, right? Making sure that you got your electrolytes, right? So that means that also another thing I'm doing more of is making sure I have enough magnesium. So we'll just say magnesium, potassium, right? And sodium. My handwriting is terrible, but you get what I'm saying, because I'm just writing quickly. I'm not trying to take up a bunch of time. So these 3, and probably calcium as far as that goes, which you can get from just whole foods or dairy. If you're eating Greek yogurt, non-fat Greek yogurt, or drinking some sort of dairy product, you should be getting calcium. But magnesium and potassium are a little bit harder, and sodium most people are probably getting enough of, especially if you're not eating and cooking, or if you're not cooking your own food. So these 2 are the big ones. This is going to help with muscle contraction, right? So as long as you're getting this, and then you're getting the carbs to help support it, that pulls in the water, everything should be firing, right? And so I'm going to erase this real quick. So what was my biggest mistake? And I think the mistake that a lot of people make, right? It's this. This is what I did. They're in a deficit too long. What does that look like? It looks like your metabolism has taken a complete shit, right? Sorry for the language, but you're deficit too long, your metabolism's in the toilet, especially if you're not doing any cardio, right? Most people are not doing any cardio, right? They're not, which means that your activity level is low. Level is low, right? Because even if you're lifting, let's say you're lifting for 45 minutes to an hour a day, the other 23 hours, most people are going to be trying to not move. Most people don't like moving unless they have an active job. So activity level is low, and the nutrients, the nutrition is not there. Nutrition is not there, right? A tree is very hardy as far as when it comes to plants, right? So, but trees, if you don't give them enough nutrients, they can survive hard winters. They can survive crazy heat. But as soon as they lose sunlight, they lose their nutrition, they start to fall, they just fall apart. They start to decay, they start getting tree diseases, and then everything starts to wilt, right? They look weak. Their trees look weak. They can't handle the wind, right? You are just like a tree. Muscle, when you retain it and you actually support it, it is actually going to stick, especially if you're holding on to it for a while, as long as you have the nutrition available, right? So, nothing there to support muscle growth. Nothing for muscle. We'll just say retention or possible growth. The reason I say possible growth is because when you're in a deficit, the idea is that you're trying to maintain as much strength and muscle size as you can, and then you're hoping that you can, ride that wave where you're not going to end up on the other side of this deficit with no muscle, right? Or losing all the muscle you've worked for the majority of the year. And some people with great genetics can probably build some muscle, right? So these are the big things that I think that we all fall into. And a lot of people think that the key to getting really lean, right, is suffering. I see this a lot. A lot of people think that suffering when it comes to working out and getting in shape is success. All right. This is something that took me a long time to realize, and I have slowly over time learned the hard way with this. I could have probably had a lot more muscle mass and been a lot leaner if I quit thinking that I need to suffer to get success. So a lot of people, they say, you know what, I'm going to start losing weight. What's the first thing they do? They say, I'm going to just cut out all this food. They're probably eating easy. If you're eating without thinking about it and like eating the normal American diet, the pizzas, the cheeseburgers, the fries, the chicken wings, and all that stuff that's out there, right? You're probably already over 3,000 calories. Let's say 4,000 calories, easy. Cookies and sweets and chips and shit like that. So when you're eating terrible, you're probably over consuming. Your activity levels in the toilet. You probably don't do enough cardio. You're not doing any enough intentional hard training. You're not tracking it, right? And so this is what happens. Eventually you get tired of doing that, right? You start to feel really awful and you say, I'm going to change this, right? Like I feel like I'm out of shape, I'm overweight, or I'm underweight, whatever it is. And I need to suffer. Because a lot of people think that dieting is suffering. For some reason, people correlate nutrition with, it has to be awful and broccoli and vegetables broccoli and chicken, and it's got to be bland and all this, right? No, it doesn't have to be that way. You should be able to enjoy the nutrition that you have enough to make it consistently part of your daily life, right? So this is not what you're wanting for especially the beginning. There's a time and point where it's going to get difficult, but it's not when you're trying to get to a low body fat with a high amount of muscle. It's right at the end, right when you know that you're going to have to forsake some muscle to get to that extremely lean position, right? But we're talking like single digit body fat. We're not talking about getting from 30% down to 10%, right? Or even higher. If you're at 40%, you don't have to eat these bland diets do nothing but cardio. I see some people get on the cardio machines. If say like you're at 30-40% body fat and they do all this cardio. Well, cardio is not too efficient as far as calorie burning in the sense of the way people think, unless you're running. But running is also terrible for muscle retention, especially in the legs. You can be on a, let's say, a treadmill, and you're walking on a high incline for 30 minutes. You might burn a few hundred calories. Well, what's a few hundred calories? A few hundred calories is like a cookie. Like you were on the machine for 30-40 minutes and you had one cookie, and congratulations, you are back at zero. Like you're back where you were at. Whereas the more you work out with lifting weights and being intentional about it, that in itself burns calories. The destruction, or I don't want to say destruction, the breakdown of muscle tissue requires those calories to be used in a healthy way, right? So now they're using that for recovery. The muscle that you have built from the last previous workouts, the months and years, is now having you with a higher metabolic rate, because the more muscle you have, the more you can retain, and the more that requires nutrition. So therefore, you can actually eat more at a higher muscle mass than you can if you were at a lower muscle mass, right? So therefore, you can eat more food. So you don't want to turn around and start suffering, right? And that's what ends up happening is you destroy your metabolism. Now you're eating 1,600 calories, and you're wondering why you can't lift. You don't have a pump. You have no mind-muscle connection. You got brain fog. Your body's got another 20-30 pounds to lose. And you can't go any lower on food, because now if you go any lower, you're going to end up binge eating, because you're going to end up turning around and saying, you know what, like as soon as you smell a cheeseburger, you're like, I just couldn't help it. Or not binge eating, but you might slack from the plan, right? So you're at 1,600 calories. Your body's not responding. It's not losing weight anymore. And you're thinking, oh my God, I got 20 more pounds and I got to do this for who knows how long. And then you smell a cheeseburger one day from a coworker at work, or you're out with your friends or something, and you're like, you know what, to the hell with it, I'm going to eat. And congratulations, now you're storing more fat. So the end of the day is we have to be more active. So that's what my plan is. Me personally, coming forward onto this deficit, being 224 right now, and I'm probably around 20%. I can see my upper abs in the morning or in certain posing positions, but I still have love handle and I still have fat right here. And I know that I still have some to come off of the legs and the arms. So I'm going to say I'm probably around 20-ish%. We'll say 18 to 20. I don't think I'm 15% body fat right now, but I do think I have a lot of muscle mass on me, and I should probably end up around 180 to 190 if I want to get really lean. So my plan is this: not doing what I did last year. So this is how it's going to go forward. I'm not going to drop calories right now. I'm going to increase my output and not suffer, right? Like I'm going to find cardio that I can at least enjoy. Maybe I'll throw on a movie. You have to be disciplined. Like it's not like it's going to be the most enjoyable thing just getting on a cardio bike or getting on an elliptical or the Stairmaster or the treadmill at a high incline and walking or biking or stair stepping for 30-40 minutes every day or every other day or whatever is needed, right? You have to evaluate your own body. But you want the results. I want the results. The results, if they were easy, everybody you see would have it. So you can't simply say that, man, like I just can't do it, and you haven't even tried. You have to apply it and be consistent with it, and then say, this is working or this is not working. That's why you need to at least track in some capacity. If you don't want to track calories, don't track calories, but at least make sure you're getting enough protein in and you're in a deficit, however you want to do that. There's a few ways you can do it. For me, I track calories. I weigh everything on a scale. That's just the easiest for me. It's because I know exactly what I'm getting. My eyeballs don't deceive me. I don't get I'm not going to count this and just add a few more, because that's how you end up overeating. So for me, that's the way I have to be most consistent with it, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm suffering, right? Like I'm still enjoying the process and I'm enjoying the results. And the results is what is driving this, right? The nutrition is fuel, right? The cardio is a way to increase my capacity from my NEAT, my daily expenditure, right? And it's going to increase my cardiovascular health, which is going to allow me to have a better recovery process so that way I can lift better and I don't have to be in such a big deficit, right? Because you can't maintain the amount of muscle mass that you're going to want eating like a bird. Lee Haney said it best, and it clicked in my head. He said, you can't lift like a horse and eat like a bird. But that doesn't mean that you can just turn around and eat whatever and expect a low body fat, high muscle composition on your body, right? You have to be intentional about it. He talks about how much he would eat whole foods and how he was very well strict on his, not strict, but he managed his nutrition, right? Because nutrition is the driving factor for the performance in the gym, right? And your strength and stuff is going to show that. So I think that me personally, the past 2 years, I had too much body fat on, and I did my deficit a little bit incorrectly. And I want to put this out here because I want y'all to learn from it, right? So I'm going to move forward and I'm going to adjust that. And then from here on out, when I get to that 15% body fat or lower, I won't go above it, because above that, there's really no reason, right? As long as I have at least a little bit of body fat and I still have visible abs, I'm technically not going to be cannibalizing the muscle that I have. So I can be in a surplus, build up to like around 15-ish% body fat, cap it after a few months, come back down leaner, do it again, reset my metabolism, come back up, and just keep doing that and slowly putting on muscle, right? So I'm moving the goalpost as I'm doing this. So I'm starting a deficit, it comes down, I'll get right here, okay, reset, add the calories back in, gradually move forward in muscle mass and reset, right? There's not a real big reason, if you're wanting to get into having a lot of muscle and looking good, right? Like in the terms of bodybuilding, to carry around a lot of extra fat, especially the natural, because we don't have the support of anabolics to increase this kind of stuff without assistance, right? Like if we want to increase our metabolism, it's going to come through the way that we train and the way we eat. There's compounds that people will take that will increase that, but as a natural person, we don't have that luxury. And that's not a bad thing. Think of it as you can achieve something that's really difficult and you should be proud of it. So that's a little breakdown of what the last year and a half, 2 years looked like. And while I have made progress, I think that there's room for improvement. So take what you can out of this. Whatever doesn't make sense to you, put the questions down below. I'll try to answer them. And I'll see you guys on the next one.